Hello everyone, it's Mocklin here. Welcome back once again, your hopefully favorite new artist. So today is going to be the second part in our little short series of videos where I create a song from scratch, and this second part is going to be focused on mixing. So for those of you who don't know what mixing exactly is, it's the stage where you take all your sounds, balance it out, apply different effects so they fit together really well. Typically for most artists during this stage, because it's a completely separate expertise from songwriting or something like that, they typically outsource it to other professionals to do this stage. But I personally, so far, mix all of my songs, and so I'm also going to try to show you on camera how I work on this song, Sinusoidal Headbang. And for this video, I'm also, just a disclaimer, I'm mixing with a very quiet speaker, so it'll be a little difficult for me to really put my ear to it. So I'll go ahead and use this setup on camera, mix the guitar and bass. Let's go and get mixing. I need to wear my glasses because I can't see, if you remember that. Oh boy. Let's redo that.
Sorry.
Okay, so before we begin, I want to show you the little differences and changes I made since the last video. If you noticed, I had a little drum intro this time that I talked about implementing last video. Now we also have piano melody. So what the piano melody is going to be is what I'm going to be singing later on. That's kind of neat. Yep, that's pretty much it. Alright, so sounds pretty cool, right? But a little unbalanced, so that's how we're going to get mixing. So the first thing I would want to work on here is going to be the bass. Let's listen to it real quick right now. Just soloed. It's part of the thing when you listen to this is it sounds a little kind of bouncy, and the low ends that is characteristic of a metal song's bass is a little bit missing. So we're going to have to go ahead and fix that. So the first thing that we're going to go is to use an EQ in order to check out its sound spectrum. So as you can see, as I play these notes, you can see how the bass mostly has stuff here at the low ends, but it's a little quiet as it is currently. And some of the highs are a bit too loud, which is giving it its bouncy feel. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. So let's go to the fourth one. Get a swoop down here. Let's listen here. So now it's cutting off the high frequencies. You can hear that's a bit more concentrated, right? Let's go ahead. Oops. All right. And then in general, in the low ends, we're going to go ahead and bump these up just a bit. Use a bell. Let's go around 55-ish probably. Get the Q a bit tighter. Put some gain here. So what the Q does is that it makes this curve wider or tighter. We want to keep it a bit tight so we don't overcompensate. In general, the gains you probably want to just blow up by a few dB, nothing too crazy so it doesn't sound unnatural. It's also gets this point over here, probably around 100-ish. and blow it up just a little bit as well. Let's go with a Q of like 2.5, maybe. Let's see how that sounds right now. So you can hear that sounds quite a bit fatter already. Now let's go ahead and stop right there for now in terms of EQ, and then go ahead and slap on some saturation to give it even fatter sound. Let's say saturated. So let's hear it. All right, let's maybe just a bit. Sounds pretty good to me from the speakers. Now let's go ahead and start compressing this as well, because we don't want it to get overblown. So let's just check over here. It's roughly about -7 right now. So we see that in general, it's roughly over there. So let's try to compress it off the threshold. So what a compressor does is it basically, you set a threshold, and if the signal goes over the threshold, then it's going to cut it down with different parameters. The higher the ratio, the more it's going to cut down. So I'm going to put this like reasonably high for a tighter compression, and I want the attack to be and release to be really low, so then the time that it takes to compress will be really tight together as we would want it. And then I'm also going to go ahead and sidechain this, because I want the bass kick from the drum part to shine through a bit more. So I'm going to sidechain this bass to the kick. And what this will do is that every time that the kick hits, it's going to compress it and thus make the bass part sound a bit quieter. So then the kick drum, which usually is in the lower frequencies as well, is going to be able to peek through just a bit more. So let's make sure we did that right. You can see that little yellow bar over there that dips in a little bit is basically when it compresses, which should be when the kick hits. We're gonna go ahead and maybe increase this just a bit. Let's increase some gain here, so we get a bit heavier compression. So as you can see, what gain does is basically increases the input signal, and generally that would make the sound louder, but since we compressed it, it's going to be pressed down like so. So it'll be more evident over here. You hear how the bass kind of like throbs just a little bit at parts when it starts to get compressed, right? So that's basically how it works. Now let's see, what else would we want to do for the bass? All right, so next, the last thing that I want to do for the bass is to slap on the OTT, which is basically a multi-band dynamic compressor that boosts a bit of the high and the low ends. And what it does basically is it's like the extra spice that a lot of people like to use these days. But let's hear what it does. Kind of a little too much, right? So we're gonna have to adjust this. Maybe something like here. And let's flatten it just a little bit. Maybe something like that. So let's listen to it with and without. Just very small, minor adjustments, right? That's what, at the end of the day, a lot of mixing is like doing really small adjustments, but these small adjustments add up and sound good at the end. Now let's go ahead and group all of these together so you can hear the impact that we got totally. So before, our bass part sounded like this. Now with. Pretty good, huh? Okay, so now that we got the bass a bit out of the way, let's go ahead and go on to guitar. So a lot of the same principles. You can see a bit of the difference over here. The lower part is not as beefed up because guitars just naturally don't have as much of those sounds, but in mixing you want to cut those out so then you can let the bass shine through. Because otherwise, if you have many signals in like the same place, then it sounds a bit murky. Just like so. We really want to just get the body of the guitar sounding. So that's like a little too much, right? A little bit more like here. Sounds pretty good. Alright, and then of course like the highest ends, we also don't want like too much of those. So let's go ahead and dip it off a little bit. So that's a little too compressed sounding. Let's dip up just a little bit so we get a little bit at the very top. Now let's go ahead and try to scope out a little bit of the body of the guitar and just beef it up just a little bit. So what I like to do is put this all the way up and just like do a sweep. A little sweep. A sweep. Sounds like about here, right? Alright. Now let's up the Q just a bit. Around here. Lower it down. Let's say like 3.5 should be good. Just beef it up a bit. And make the Q a bit lighter. Sounds pretty good to me. Yeah, we don't want that. So that's way too much feedback, of course. So let's go ahead and dip all these down. All right, that sounds pretty good from what I can hear. So now let's hear it all together with the new bass and guitar and see what we got here. Sounds pretty good, right? Now let's turn both of these off. Hear what they sound like before. Quite a big difference, right? Alright, so hopefully what I did so far sounds pretty tight. I have no idea. I'm just listening through the speakers. But anyways, you kind of get the idea. I actually did some mixing with headphones with some extra time a few days ago before recording this video. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that, shall we? Now, if you're going to be wearing headphones, you're going to be able to hear all the little nuances with like panning and stuff differently, which in case if you don't know what panning is, it's basically you can adjust what direction your sound is coming from. So this allows you to get a more stereo effect in terms of mixing. Let's listen. Oh yeah, also sped up the BPM just a little bit because I thought it was a little too slow how I had it originally. Alright, that's pretty much it. Alright, so that pretty much wraps this video up. Hope you enjoyed that little mixing session. Personally speaking, I'm still kind of a newbie at it as well, so I'm still learning. But hopefully you got some decent tips out of this. The next part I'm going to be working on is going to be songwriting. and that'll also be pretty fun. So stay tuned for that. As before I approach that video, I'm actually going to finish up the instrumental for the song. As you can see, it's missing like a second verse and chorus and also the bridge as well. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get that together and mixed before I write some lyrics along with it. And of course, before we sign off, please check out my music in the description below. Like and subscribe. Let me know if you like this video, what I can do to improve, or what you hated. Hopefully you didn't hate anything. But yeah, Mocklin, signing off. How's that?